Good evening. My name is Brenda Sisane. It is evening here in South Africa at 1800 hours. We welcome you from every corner of the globe. Thank you for joining us. By now, it is common knowledge that South Africa has been going through a cataclysmic spate of unrest that, when coupled with the COVID pandemic, renders us a nation going through a major crisis. It was while in search for these news in the media streets that I came across a rather derisive caption at the end of a bookstore snapshot. It read as follows: "The one store that will remain standing is this bookstore at the local mall being ransacked by looters." Let me just say I was highly reluctant to test this theory for fear of finding out that the writer could be correct. Lest I digress, tonight is one of those rare occasions when my elder and dear brother Eugene Skeef is at the opposite end of the table. Whereas he would be moderating a dialogue or sharing some artistic insights, he joins us today as the author of the exciting book of poems, In Search of My River, a symphonic poem of memory that he recently published. I'm privileged to be master of ceremonies during this auspicious book launch. In keeping with the theme of the book, our program tonight is presented as a perfect marriage of word and sound, after which we will have a short Q&A session. Please be so kind as to write your questions on the chat box. Eugene will attempt to reply to a few of these tonight and beyond tonight on his own platforms for the rest of the questions. I'll also invite you to wear your headphones so that you have a better experience of the audio and the visual that will be offered tonight. Knowing Eugene's skill as a media maven, stripes he earned years ago as a journalist with the BBC, this book was introduced to us as soon as it hit the press, possibly even before, all due to his irrepressible energy and impressive database, but also because he gets completely consumed by an idea. He unwittingly gives power and impact to his every utterance in the media. So yes, we've known about this book. I do not believe, though, that we've known what else to do with the prudent intent contained in this book that is surprisingly his first publication. Surprisingly, indeed, I say, when one considers the span of his expansive career. He's a percussionist, he's a composer, he's a poet, he's an educationalist, a broadcaster, an expert in conflict resolution. He consults on cultural development. He's a known teacher of creative leadership, and not forgetting the endless accolades of collaboration. So how is this possible? This, dear friends, is the thrust of our gathering here tonight, to further acquaint ourselves with the intangibles about Eugene, this creative powerhouse who spends his time extolling the virtues of others, to delve into his personal vision that is nobly shaping global perceptions and imparting African intellect from his own consciousness, to acknowledge and give thanks to Eugene for his personal signature of service, and to celebrate this milestone and at its unique timing as well, on behalf of one whose writings form part of his DNA. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, family, I give you Eugene Skeef. Please show your love by choosing an emoji on your screen. It could be a love emoji. Please show it if you can, just to say hello to this wonderful spirit we're celebrating today. I would be remiss to not welcome in our midst Eugene's life partner, Azra Kayani. Happy birthday, Azra. Of course, they are beautiful children and the rest of his family in South Africa, as well as you, his virtual family. His publishers, Ssali Publishing House, the Nelson Mandela University, the amazing artists who will be performing here today. I also advise again to wear your headphones. It will serve you better. The moment is here to start things off. As a man of family, it is fitting in many ways to introduce Eugene's much gifted niece, Eugene Skeef. On discovering the book, she encouraged the Skeef family to make it available to schools. And Eugene has heeded this call. Eugene Skeef will be reading Headwaters of My Jazz. Enjoy. Eugene Skeef reads Headwaters My Jazz.
Headwaters of My Jazz. My mother taught me my first chords on the rickety piano, given to her by an English family in appreciation of a healing of their garden boy, who was really a man, but they found the title of his entitlement to dignity too elusive for their twisted tongue. I would sit on her lap and follow her fingers as they navigated the keys to her joy, learning to embrace the black notes with which she spiced her syncopations, the sharp flavor of which is normally avoided in the first lessons of white music. She would switch with such ease from singing poignant hossa verses to blending her sweet soprano tones with the plaintive sonority of Billie Holiday before redeeming the blues, trapped in the putrid ghetto air, with her uplifting interpretation of Ella Fitzgerald. Thank you.
Oh my word, how absolutely beautiful. I do beg your pardon for that little bit of a glitch there, but that was beautiful. A round of applause to the young lady. I must say, she reminds me that the apple truly does not fall far from the tree. There's a quote from Eugene I'd like to share with you that has to do with his beginnings and how it relates to the kind of family relationship very closely knit that he enjoys. He says, I started writing poetry at an early age, and I truly feel that my flowing words are a gift from beyond. In fact, I have little control over them. I am but a creative conduit, unquote. The next performance is by Susan Skosana, whose presence is a glimpse into Eugene's big heart as a friend of many, particularly those with unique artistic gifts and character. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce South African historian, published author, arts development project leader, a jazz praise singer and poet, Susan Skosana. She'll give a poet's response in Setswana. Her poem is titled Ngwanyana Omorolong, autobiographical poem fused with Khabalatsane, a Moriti poem, originally by Micha Khasi, her great-granddad, who lived between 1864 and 1956. He was born early, an unsung African poet. Enjoy Susan Skosana's rendition.
Ke lefatla lwa bomantegi ke le sebusebu lwa lefatla ke lefatla lwa mafatla a mafatla ka re phefe fatle di tlo selemo ke ra ka kgwedi ya matlhabanaga nna mme ga nkile tse ke boka lwa mpona ke le gapatshonyana ke kgwamaje ke re dumelang bagaetsho ke nna Mmantelane Konenyana Mogobe ngwanyana morolong o moseso motlokolo o motjolo makgakgakgantsha bo bokwena ke morupi o kubela go tsene matsepe tlogolo sa kgasia mmakgwalepe tlogolo sa koko mmalampiti ka re moke ko la sutlhilweng sefatlhego ke tseo di kakana ka re ke motswa gole ke ra kgole kgwensa kgabalatsana moriti e re ke reta ke anagela ke re kgabalatsana moriti naga dikgomo le batho naga ke lala lenato ke letse kgabalatsana moriti naga e senang sekgopi sa ona se sengwe sekgopi sa ona lenyora le bona ga etsatsi le au moduana bo le kgerre go la kwa rapopele ka re dipetlwane di sala kwa mapenane bana ba gao kwa gae ba lele ba lla ba pelo botlhoko ba re moduane maitsho re mosa a farala le lenyora le teng ga reng kgabalatsana moriti homola mosabetsana homola ke go belege ka thari ya namane. Thank you.
I don't know how we do this, but as I said, you've got emojis at your disposal. You can do this. What a wonderful moment there. Thank you so much for rousing the spirits, through your grandfather. What a beautiful story you have to tell, Susan. This is incredible, absolutely amazing. I saw hands being raised, and I was wondering if there's anything you want to share. Please write on here. We're walking with you as we enjoy this journey of word and sound. Thank you very much to Susan. Now, when we talk about Eugene and the many facets of Eugene, when you have the privilege to talk to him as often as you can and bouncing off ideas, or even just learning from the conversations he creates all the time in the media space, you get to enjoy some beautiful sentiments from him, and he shares this off the cuff, and it's amazing, his command of the language and his understanding of the arts. I recently enjoyed a moment with Eugene, very relevant to this last performance in particular. This was sparked by one of his daily meditations, also known as poemets. He has been sharing since the onset of the COVID pandemic. This particular one was so compelling, I immediately sent a chat message. My brother, I say, you need to teach the elegance of simplicity, especially when it comes to translating African depth and spiritual vernacular into foreign language, for it is the choice of words that deepen the perception of what is being said. And in his very prompt and very easy way, he responds and says, you could not have sent me a more pertinent message about the desperate need to plumb the depths of our cultural heritage. African belief systems are amongst the most powerful as far as interpreting the universe is concerned. Our duty as poets of nature's repository of wisdom is to unravel the hidden truths of our existence and its eternal tides. Indeed, my global workshops are about the dissemination of this awareness, he said. Amazing. Absolutely potent. Speaking of those poemets, which themselves became a global COVID phenomenon, Eugene's creative collaborator on these daily lockdown poems is South African pianist, composer, singer, poet, Estelle Kokot. For this special occasion, Estelle teamed up with Liverpool's Rare Studio choreographer and dancers, Jacqueline Shee, Hal McFadden, and Rio Allison, respectively, to put together a stunning video in response to Rendezvous with the Son of Man, Man of People, which is dedicated to Steve Biko. Enjoy this video.
I had driven thousands of miles without sleep, when suddenly I found myself surrounded by blue-green grasslands, a myriad seed heads swaying gently in supplication to the winds to spread the seeds of their buried wisdom beyond the nascent horizons. I paused to listen to my heart fade beneath the crescendo of the chorus of cicadas and succumbed to the unfolding tones of inflorescence rising from the valley of burial mounds. I nourished my determination to reach the source of my people's river by uprooting the tallest stem from a tuft of rumuzi, crowning a pyramid of pebbles at the confluence of ancient paths, concealed among the verdant wetlands, where untamed and loony cattle seasonally graze to reveal the sacred sites. Ici vivane, vivane, ici vivane. A pile of stacked seeds of time, testament to the travels of African sages who, in search of the truth of their origins, humbly followed the cosmic river that gave my people its name. Among the strewn stones that hold the story of the universe, the last sage had found a perfect pebble still shimmering with memories of emotion. And shifting his balance to his right, picked up the pebble in the original fashion of the long-migrated forest dwellers, raised his curled foot to his lips, spat a blessing of saliva, as he had been taught by his mother, the goddess of the seas, and posited it on the pinnacle of the pyramid. I raised my weary eyes to the bleeding skies and saw the diaphanous imprint of the posture of balanced poise. I unsheathed the grass and sucked the sweet juice of its succulent stem. I spread my arms to embrace the heavens like the horns of a sacred black bull from the hills of a long history. Then I clasped the moist tuft with my calloused hands and drew the secret dew of darkness and drank. Till my thirst was drowned. I performed the ritual of my morning ablutions with the humility of a cowherd, facing the blood-red pool of sky. Sanctified by the sacrifice of the son of the soil, the son of man, son of woman, child of the African sun, whose name was canonized by the bulrushes slain for prayer mats, and chanted by the stars, and forever resonates beyond the cosmic ocean of dreams. He who fended the ferocious hounds that bayed for the blood of our innocence by giving his own. By giving his own. beatitude of porpoise beads, inspiration of our dreams, king whose crown parts with a smile, omnipresent spirit of
What a powerful, powerful poem and a rendition. In fact, I agree with everything that is said by the panelists and the attendees. Beautiful amalgamation of words, dance, music, and rendition. Mesmerizing. These are the words that came through. And I can only say, this is the world of Eugene Skeef. We always immerse ourselves in this world in its comprehensive sense. Thank you very much for that. Wow, thank you very much. And Estelle, just to repeat, this is a wonderful teaming up with Liverpool's Rare Studio choreographer and dancers, Jacqueline Shee, Hal McFadden, Rio Allison, Rendezvous with the Son of Man, Man of the People, dedicated to Steve Biko. Thank you so much. Your comments are taken into consideration. And Susan, I know you are listening in the audience somewhere. Please, you've been requested to give a translation of your beautiful, beautiful rendition as well, so that we can share it as we go along on this wonderful night. A fitting comment from Eugene, I've always used, he says, the universal language of music to translate my message. But my deepest wish is that my poetry will also speak the same language of justice, love, freedom, and tolerance, not only in Africa, but in the world. These poems are dedicated to fellow exiles everywhere who have gone in search of their rivers, found their homes, and swam in the waters of peace. Highly regarded as a community music leader, Eugene was often a sought-after visiting professor at leading arts academies across Europe, and his workshops using a special mix of music and drumming proved to be profoundly successful in bringing about emotional and spiritual recovery. He has established relations with a number of similar institutions in South Africa, thankfully, and one of which is the Nelson Mandela University in the Eastern Cape. This is a brief arrangement, an aspect of Eugene's piece, Hymn of Peace, performed by his creative team at Nelson Mandela University under the guidance of music lecturer Gareth Williams. The woman in the powerful voice is Azizi Begapi. The two keyboardists are Eula Williams and Chester Summerton, and the percussionist is Tendai Dembaremba. Eugene's daughter Tulani Kayani Skeef is reading the poetic movement, Africa, Water for Peace. Let's indulge.
Oh I travel in search of a land without cold and horror. I follow the sun to where it perches high in the blue sky. I am borne by the bow of a primal rainbow to the source of the river of colors. My lute is strung with tendons from the heart. Melodies unfurl like the enchanted aroma of Ethiopian coffee trapped in the flowing robes of suspended time. I encounter harvesters of frankincense and myrrh, children with butterfly fingers caressing trees as they tap the sap of our origins, unhindered by the ball of fire rolling on high. In the shade of their balsamic heaven of hearts, they offer me water purified by legends. I drink slowly the stories of the first people who painted dreams with the blood of caves on the yielding flesh of sacred prey. Even tomorrow, when the sun will oversleep, their wisdom will stain the vision of untold horror in the full darkness of daylight. Their virgin dreams will calcify and flared screams will emanate from the desert of their strewn jaws. What wayward winds blowing over their parched hopes will ripple the still waters of a new vision? What seed will germinate to surrender a flower to clasp the sun and return it to its original orbit? And so I journeyed beyond the horizon, following the colored ribbons of the divine dancer, my aching soul soothed by the essence of the inhabitants of tropical cathedrals, who bathed me in somniferous psalms and fed me honeyed milk from breast-shaped gourds cultivated on the slopes of acquiescence. Time passed with the still motion of eternal melodies of boat supplicants sung on mornings of quenched thirsts. Then, when the deep furrows of my sleep were saturated with the cool waters of song, I was told that I should stay on the sanctified path marked with stone pyramids, left in the wake of the sages who spoke in song in the time of the shaping of the land of my dreams. When they sang, the stones and the trees and the rivers were manifest before their eyes. They orchestrated the harmonics of their thoughts, and out of their open mouths flew birds of color, harmonizing the deepest secrets unburdened by their flight.
Yeah, sometimes words fail, but it is very apparent that Eugene relates to young artists as one whose talents were nurtured at a young age. I mean, from the reading by Eden, so beautiful and so articulately artistic, to Tulani and the way she's read this amazing poem. You can imagine how blessed it is to grow up in a family with the kind of guidance that he gives. But he doesn't stop there. He continues to relate to young artists wherever he goes. It gives me great pleasure to introduce yet another exciting voice that Eugene has selected to support and collaborate with. He considers Vuyo to be a beautiful human being, a very creative one at that. Vuyo Vumisa is accompanied by Linda Mdluli performing Water Me for Peace. This is Vuyo's creation in response to the movement in Eugene's symphonic poem titled Africa, Water for Peace.
Tamaku siyatamakusha. Tamaku livumile. Tamaku ivuthiwe ingoma. Tamaku siyazithuma. Directions are directing my passions, and I'm moving in circles. My anger can be so vicious that it makes my face pop out freckles. Circles and riddles. My pockets are so empty, I don't even have a single nickel. My brain is busy dribbling, dirty thoughts mingling. Mind itching, triggers frustrating the frustrations of my erection. Self-reflection. What I mean for peace, to keep the peace and not the peace though. What I mean for peace, to keep the peace and not the peace though. And a divine intervention. Zachi isn't. The light is not a dream. Tree, color, stardust in true form. Yesterday means no more, yet vivid is apparent. Questioning purpose, what the wealth is inward. Shut my mouth wide open, I'm gone with the wind. They did it like that, but now we do it like this. You can see the dream in my eyes, the memory of my ancestors. What am I for peace? To keep the peace and not the peace though. What am I for peace? To keep the peace and not the peace though. Because directions are directing my passions. The directions are directing my passions, and I'm moving in circles. My anger can be so vicious that it makes my face pop out freckles, circles of riddles, pockets empty, not a single nickel. Mind dribbling, tongue spitting, mind etching. Triggering the frustration of self-reflection. What am I for peace? To keep the peace and not the peace though. What are the African mind for peace? To keep the peace and not the peace though.
You know, I find every moment I'm wearing a silly green just sitting here by myself in appreciation and in admiration. I love that comment from you, Jaco, who says phenomenal slam, you know, and it's just the sophistication and the contemporary stylist way, you know, in which Eugene conducts work and understands, you know, the genres, the subgenres, you know, above and below, you know, in terms of just the work that gets done out there and in appreciation of that. I'm not going to dwell much longer. I'm just going to read a particular quote that relates to young people and a passionate utterance made by Eugene recently. He said, I wish to remind younger musicians that they do not exist in the vacuum of their egos, but that they are part of the community from which they emerge, unquote. We write to taste life twice, said somebody, in the moment and in retrospect. For the award-winning Eugene Skeef, who has traveled the hills and slopes of life as an innovator, whose global projects include community music, jazz, world music, European classical music, contemporary dance theater, and children's storytelling, this first book is a special and cathartic journey in many ways. He gives us the rare treat of reading from this poetic memoir, In Search of My River, his first volume of published poetry that examines his connection to Africa and recalls childhood memories growing up in Claremont Township, KwaZulu-Natal. His powerful imagery is exceptionally lyrical and echoes the rhythms and music that suffused his life since he was a young boy, sitting on his mother's lap, stroking the keys of an old piano. He will now respond to the events leading up to today and then read Cadence. Eugene Skeef.
Hey, Brenda. Brenda.
I'm here.
Brenda. Yo.
Yeah.
Shoo! Boom! This is very, very, very hard for me. You. Shoo! Ooh. Ah. I remember that my father once told me when I was a kid that life should always be an act of beauty, and that if it was not an act of beauty, it wasn't worth living. Thank you, everybody, for making me feel more beautiful than I can bear right now. Hey, vuyo. Thank you. Cadence. That day at the lagoon, the lead crab had told me she knew my mother and father, and that I had returned to remind our people to honor the song of our river, to redeem its hidden waters. Then one day, after crawling through time's wormhole, I arrived at a lake of fragrant memories in the valley of welcoming hills. I heard a sibilant symphony of the whispering voices of my mother and father and their mothers and fathers and theirs too. A man emerged from the singing water. He was of youthful body, but wizened disposition. He told me legends of creatures beneath the water, guardians of the treasure of my forebears, who had sent him to meet me to convey their blessings of my hidden fortune, and that I was to kneel before the advancing waves and memorize the incantations of the lapping rhythms as I performed the ritual of ukuthelelwa amanzi, the cleansing with water and the ashes of memory's sacrifice. After the years of my absence from the grove of my family's fruits. And when I was ready, I should follow him to the bottom of the lake, where they await me at the circular table of life's feast. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are so proud of you as I read some of these posts that are coming through, for saying that life is an act of beauty. Thank you for sharing the beauty with us in the world. Love and light to you. This comes from Anthea Ambrosley. As we continue in this moment, thank you very much, Eugene. As we conclude this exciting ceremony, we are blessed by the presence of the legendary South African painter, poet, philosopher, percussionist, cultural activist, Lefifi Tladi, with whom Eugene goes back to the Steve Biko-led Black Consciousness movement in the 70s. He presents his improvisation on the spot titled Manifestation of Our Rivers as a response to Eugene's symphonic poem of memory. Maestro will also reveal some exciting news about the continued collaboration for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lefifi Tladi.
Yeah, I am so elated to be part of this manifestation. And I remember in the 70s, we used to call ourselves, We Are Colors Gallery, the pied beauty. So our thing has always been in search of our beauty. And it was so funny when I was reading this In Search of My Rivers. And I was saying, what the hell is this? Now the river is in search of its own tributaries. So it's not actually in search of the river, because this is the river speaking. And I remember when I told Eugene, when he had the first year, I think a little lecture with you, and then I was saying that it is so beautiful that now the tributaries and oases are visiting. And on that basis, I wrote this thing here that In Search of the River is a gallery of weaving of my tributaries as they transform into a river that flows from the skies, a river that flows from the skies, expressing the plurality of our different waters, the singularity that nourishes the us all. And this is actually so important that it's very unfortunate that we have lots of art schools in South Africa, but unfortunately the art schools do not teach the artists what is an artist. And an artist, yingoma, you know, what we generally call Wamasango, but the schools must teach the ngomas in us. And if ngoma means song, that's why we have to generate a generation of very eloquent artists, you know? And that's the most beautiful thing that I like about this poetry collection, you know? It is such a representation of, I don't know if this makes sense, of beautiful scars, you know? And on that basis, because when we look at scars, we always see them from the negative perspective, you know? But the artist in this case has transcended, you know, the negative element of the scars, and which is the basis of the whole book. That means to heal the scars in our blood. That is very, very, very important, because we are busy healing the wounds, but not the scars that are in our blood. To put it in some form of English, we might say to heal the DNA factor in the us all. So it's just that unfortunately I don't have time, but I want to talk about some of these important things that we are embarking on, that we have been working with Sister Ssali, that our next book should be a collection of my collages and Eugene's handwritten poetry, you know, that we have seen in all of these things. And then there was a big problem that who is going to write an introduction to this thing? And I said, but Eugene, you have written a lot of music. Let us make your scores as the introduction to the book. And then we will be in a position to understand the importance of sound literacy, if you see what I mean. You see, and that's why it is very, very important that all our children should learn how to read and write music. Not that they will become musicians, but they will have the capacity to appreciate the literature of sound, you know? And on that basis, that's why it is very important that our children have to learn how to paint and draw. Not that they're going to be artists, but they can understand the foundation of what makes these art pieces beautiful, you know, and move from this way of ordinary people. I like it or I don't like it, but it is good to know why you like it. And when you say this painting is bad, you know, you can explain why it's bad. And when you say it's beautiful, why it's beautiful. And that's why we can understand the beauty of this poetry, because we understand the anatomy of poetic language, you know? And these are some of the things that I was actually remarking, and this I have to put it in this slot, when Eugene was talking about, he was just taking his power walk in London and was passing Van Gogh's house. There was a placard that Van Gogh lived in this house, and I was saying, but Eugene, I mean, your house needs placards, because I don't know how many people should be written at the entrance of your door. Mervyn Africa lived here, Bekim Solek lived here, and I mean, you'd have a whole string of this. But these are some of the things that we need to establish in South Africa, where Gideon Numalo lived, you know, Peter Magubani, Ernest Cole, and all these things. And it's good for young artists to know where their ancestors come from, you see. And okay, it's good for tourism too, but you know, that would also be another story. But all these things are very, 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 very important, you know, for us to embark on these things. We are working also with Ssali on another book with Khaya Mahlangu's music and some of my drawings and calligraphy and things like that. And I wish some other young artists could say, oh, I want to make a book of Gideon Numalo's music and my paintings. And all these things are very, very, very important, you know. And I was talking to Eugene on a serious note about that musicians, I have to be a little critical about them, because musicians, we have made a lot of paintings dedicated to them. We have written poems dedicated to them. But the funny thing is, it's very rare. And we can even take a guy like Julian Bahula, who has worked and his covers have been designed by Dumile Feni. There was never a song dedicated to a graphic artist, you know. Musicians dedicate songs to themselves, for Dollar Brand, for Kipi Mwekesi, and things like that, and never for Peter Magubani as a photographer, or Alf Kumalo, you know. And it is very important that these young musicians must begin to understand the collective weaving of our river, of cultural consciousness, you know. And it's very important to understand this way, cultural consciousness, you know, because sometimes we make a big mistake. I remember even in the 70s when we used to belong to this Black consciousness movement. And in the 90s, after 1994, we realized a lot of people were Black aware, not conscious at all, because consciousness involves commitment. And as long as you don't commit your consciousness, you are just Black aware. I think this is how far I can take it, my brother. I hope when the questions come, we can add a little bit to the spice. Thank you.
Thanks, Chonza.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much to Lefifi Tladi. Manifestation of our rivers, as he says, that this particular river represents the collective of struggle, as he says, you know. And I've enjoyed reading the comments after your, you know, just your presentation, that Lefifi, you know, words such as power, you know, collective weaving of our river is noted. Hey Shamsa, wise poetic words spoken, they say, because you speak so much truths, they say. One that really stood out is the love for the concept of sound literacy, scars of our blood. Thank you very much, sir, for your response. Well, we're getting closer to the end of the first hour, and we're going to get ready for the Q&A. If you'd like to write them in the box, please, this is the time to do so. You've had an opportunity to interact with the presentation and the unity that it presents, which is In Search for My River by Eugene Skeef. He doesn't walk alone at all. Neither does Lefifi Tladi walk alone. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Rose Ssali, the CEO of Ssali Publishing House. Rose is the managing editor, author, publisher, and big book review editor, an experienced ghostwriter, and excellent command of English and Kiswahili. She founded this publishing house that is dedicated to proudly amplifying the voices of African authors. Rose is also going to share with us the response of our own African diaspora to the work of Eugene Skeef. I hand over to you, Rosa.
Good evening, everyone. What a beautiful, beautiful evening. Just a pleasure to be in such wonderful company. I've got to start by just reading one of the poemlets, and coincidentally, and Eugene, you know this, we're so in tune, so I'm not surprised that you chose to say the words from this very one, Act of Beauty. My father once told me that life should be an act of beauty for it to be worth living. Eugene, you have done exactly that. You are living a life that's worth living. And you have brought beauty not just out of your life, but into our lives. And Eugene could have been published 20, 30 years ago, but I feel that you waited. You could have been published by the big names in the UK, in Europe, anywhere in the world, but you have honored us. A publishing company, homegrown, registered locally in South Africa. You have brought it home from 6,000 miles away. And I just want to acknowledge you. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Eugene, it's my singular pleasure to just honor you tonight and to see so many artists, friends, family, loved ones come to celebrate you. And tonight is your moment. I celebrate you as your publisher, as your soul sister, as your friend, and, you know, as a fellow poet. And when I think of all the artists that you have brought along my way, I'm just fascinated. Some of them Lefifi already alluded to. And my team has absolutely loved working with you. Our team comprises of our general manager, Kirsten Rolston, Kim Hunter, who keeps us online, uploaded into Amazon. Just beautiful spirit. She does our layout, our formatting. We have Yaku Snook, who is a marvel. When you see what he's done with your book and Lefifi's, I mean, I was blown away and I already know his work. There's Zenani Mwangi, there is Alan, there's Vanessa, and Eve Sengele. Eve is our in-house attorney. And together they keep us you know, able to look after each one of you. I'd also want to acknowledge some of the bookstores that are working with us, Books Africa, there's Textbook Center in Nairobi, and so many others that come together to make this happen. Tonight, I also want to thank every one of you who's taken time to come and celebrate our own author, Eugene, our poet, musician. He's a leader in our community. He has such generosity of spirit that you're all going to see in a book entitled The Mentor, where the mentees who are global, you know, from every corner of the earth have come together to, in a sense, celebrate and say, Eugene, I was a tributary flowing through the valleys and the hills, and you gathered me, you nurtured me into your river, and now they have direction into their own ocean. I also want to acknowledge every single artist tonight. Suzanne, oh, my darling sister, I am always blown away by your artistry, your poetry, your praise, the power, the energy that you bring into what you do. I celebrate you tonight. Vuyo, who I had the joy of meeting, your humility, just the strength and the beauty that you bring into your craft is amazing. Estelle, oh, beautiful woman, she is just amazing. And tonight, you absolutely outdid yourself. Your duet, the Rare Studio, the dancers, amazing. Please extend our love and appreciation to them. To young, beautiful Eden, you blew us away from the time that clip was posted on Facebook. We fell in love with you. Your voice, your beauty just shows through. And the other thing I appreciate is the way that Eugene has taken the young ones in the family, in the community, and then showcased them. That reminds us as family that we must nurture our own and then put them out into the world. Lefifi, Lefifi, my darling, you are amazing. Your words were spot on. I celebrate you, and you're just incredible. I also would like to acknowledge Eugene's daughter, Tulani. She is incredibly well-spoken. She is beautiful. Of course, she's one of the mentees of her father, and she's just blossomed under his care, his love, but goes beyond a father to just sharing what is in him as an artist, to bring out the artist in her. And I'm sure with time, you'll all get to see the butterfly that has blossomed out of Eugene's home. I would also like to acknowledge Jules, incredible support, everything put together within a very, very short time. Thank you so much. And of course, Brenda, it is such a joy always to work with you, your gentle spirit, your beauty, your knowledge, and just bringing all this together. And I just want to close by saying that Eugene, you are celebrated not just in South Africa, and I know globally there is that attention, but today we want to bring you home. We want to bring you home to Africa. And I want you to see what the diaspora in celebrating you has to say in inviting you home. And no one can say it better than my dear friend, Rosemary Jairo. She is a Deputy High Commissioner at the High Commission of the United Republic of Tanzania to South Africa, based in Pretoria. Rosemary nakualika useme machache to kwa ndugu yetu Eugene. You've seen his book, we talked about him recently, and you absolutely fell in love with him and said you want to introduce him to Africa in a very special way. Rosemary, over to you, Karibu.
Thank you very much. Kiale Buka, Eugene, Dumela, Abuti. This shows that I've stayed in South Africa and I didn't make an effort, but the situation forced me to speak several, at least bits and pieces of language, one of them being Setswana, since I'm based in the Swane. So I've actually learned that even I know how to call God in Setswana, Modimo. So I'm very blessed to be here tonight. And Rose, you are wondering why the book waited this long to come now. It had to come now because this is the decade of the heritage, decade of African roots and the diaspora. So since he's living in the diaspora, and I have the interest in diaspora, I've been a director for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Tanzania of diaspora, I can't agree why it has come now, because this is the moment. Also with us, who accompanied me from Tanzania, we have very high profile, the Director for Arts and Development for the Ministry of Information, Culture, Arts and Sports, Dr. Emmanuel Ishangoma. He has joined us here. We've also got Mr. Godfrey Chungura, who promotes artists, and he does publicity of artwork in Tanzania. So this is to show how serious we are, that we want to bring you back. And you can see my Tanzanian flag here and the African Union flag, because we want you to build the African youth, because we have discovered that we are so talented. You know, I used to have an Indian friend who used to say, when even a baby, a 2-year, when they hear the drums, the way they wiggle their bodies is quite different. So we need to put that into context so that we can have our own Beyoncés, we can have our own Jennifer Lopez. So in the African continents, the Mangungu and other people from the continent, African continent, who are showcased by legends like you and Lefifi in all areas of art, culture, and even sport. So when I was invited, I also said, no, this is an opportunity that we need to bring you to Tanzania. And you know, Tanzania is home for Zanzibar and also Kilimanjaro. And it's the only country which produces tanzanite in the world. So how do you see yourself being in a country like in Ngorongoro and giving a seminar in Zanzibar with the white sands? Okay, I know there's the coastal, South Africa is blessed with the 2 oceans, but I'm not bragging, but it's the truth. The white sands, which are in East Africa, the eastern part, from Kenya up to Mozambique. So how do you find yourself doing such work? And then to add a cherry on top of the cake, in our High Commission here in South Africa, we have started working with KwaZulu-Natal Center of Foreign Indigenous Languages, whereby we are planning to teach Kiswahili using indigenous language. I was amazed when I heard your company is called Umoya, which means unity. It's the Swahili word, umoja. I brought my daughter here. She came to school in Eastern Cape, and she said she could speak isiXhosa easily because of Kiswahili, because she says imbuzi, which is mbuzi to us. So, I mean, the director is hearing me. He's the one who's going to receive us. I just need the dates. It's all sorted out. So I just need the dates to facilitate this. We go into this direction of building our own, because I've seen your mentees and I'm quite impressed. I was chatting with Mr. Rechungura, Godfrey Rechungura here. He was thrilled with the voices. So we need what you have. The poet, my sister, my Sisana sister, I have a family, the Malokas, the Royal Malokas in Mpumalanga, who I visit them. So the voices are just superb, you know. One thing I'll tell you, when I go to church in Tanzania, I feel there's something missing, because the way they sing in South Africa, you think just God is just coming down there. So I would like to say in Swahili, Karibu sana Tanzania. Looking forward to host you from Pemba, Zanzibar, Kilimanjaro, Ngorongoro, the Lake Victoria. And by stepping your foot in Tanzania, be assured that we'll take you to all the East African countries, up to South Sudan. Mostly welcome. Kialebuka ubaba. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Madam Rosemary. Thank you very much for this, you know, just this all-embracing words and teaching us to learn each other's languages just by the graceful way in which you shared your message here today. Well, as somebody was saying earlier, I just love how Eugene is needed all over the world. That's so true, Eugene. Over to you from the mouth of, the universe. 2 people have raised their hands. I just want to share to the audience that is about to leave that this entire presentation is being recorded, and you'll be able to to watch it later on and to engage with it, including your comments and the responses thereof. We do have almost 15 minutes of Q&A if you'd like to pose your questions. I'd like to start by the two attendees that from the get-go already raised their hands. Palisa Rasikwala, I'm not sure what you wanted to address. Would you like to write it down for us to kind of maybe respond to it? And also to anybody else that have asked questions, if I've missed any, all it has been, Eugene, has been acquiescence and agreements and just celebration for this incredible work and this wonderful presentation. But some of us have homework, including Susan as well as Vuyo Vumisa. People need your translated words because, you know, they could understand, they felt the depth of the emotion. They just want to understand what exactly was being said there. That's what I can say. But we're close to the end of this presentation, and I just want to thank everybody for having stuck to time and used it so optimally. So I'll open it for the last few moments. In the meantime, I know that Julian will be running, you know, our closing song later on. So if I've left anything out, I'd like my panel to just jump in and just say a word or two. Eugene, you can respond if you'd like to before we close.
Yes, thank you, my Sister B, Sister Brenda. I just want to say to the Deputy High Commissioner that you could not have presented me with a more meaningful challenge. I simply put, I was born in Africa to be back in Africa, and your country is a country that when I worked with Lefifi Tladi, who's there, and the great Steve Biko, when we all worked together, your country was one of the countries we looked up to in terms of our love of our continent and respect for our cultural traditions and the political wherewithal. So consider that done. Thank you.
Halala siyakubongela bhuti wami ukwanda kwaliwa ngumthakathi waze wamuhle bo lo msebenzi. I'm so proud, very proud of you. Unwele olude from Mamgcina Mhlophe. And of course, thank you very much to everyone. It's been incredible indeed. I really enjoyed being here, and I'm glad we ended it on time without cutting anyone off. Just wanted to wish you a pleasant night and say if we've left out any questions, this is the moment to raise your hands. We are almost done with the program. And Julian has got a beautiful song that is he's going to be playing that also is characteristic of Eugene's work. It's a young man who's just launched a beautiful project, and he's going to play the goodbye song for us. And the last bit of the remarks as I just get ready to close is that thank you so much for this truly inspirational way that Eugene's book has been introduced to us and how he has been celebrated by the works of so many incredible artists and presenters from Margaret Andrews. We thank you all and wish you a pleasant night. As the song is playing, I just wanted to answer a few questions that have just come through. One of the big ones is, how do we get hold of the book, Mr. Skeef? This has been the question that has come through. And if anyone is here, I think we spoke earlier on about the fact that the book is also available through the digital outlets, such as well as Amazon. And I think I'd like to share that. Any inputs from Rose and everyone else about how the book is available? Please go ahead.
Yes, the book is available at booksafrica.coza. And obviously, you can always call me. Our website is ssalipublishing.com. ssalipublishing.com. It's SSALI publishing.com. It's also available online at Amazon.
Can you just give a link? There's just a link.
And there is a link. Maybe you can copy that. Kim has graciously put that. And you'll be able to see where the book is available. And if you send Eugene a message, he will usually send me a love note to say, please send a message to whoever needs one.
And to the panelists, what is the best thing about reading this book? Please help us answer these two questions. Eugene, you can go first. Yeah.
Okay, my answer was going to be, I was going to direct my answer via Lefifi. Lefifi, my brother, could you, Tsapo is one of the people who wants to know what the context of boomerang to the source is, the meaning of that in this context. And the answer is quite clear, but I'd like you to answer that one, please.
Yeah, you know, we are talking about the importance of oases, you know? So our source is actually the oasis, but the concept was actually inspired by Cabral's book, Boomerang to the Source. You get it? And so we said boomerang to the oasis, you see? And source, in actual fact, if you want to go deep into some of these things, is actually the element that nourishes you. You get it? And to put it in our language, this is share. And when you talk about the word share, it's one of these words you can't find in English, you know, because it's not relish or sauce in that thing, but it is something that you need to carry through. Like pap, you need share, and you can share ka metsi, ka letswai, ka swikiri, ka morogo. And today, because we are so civilized to reshebaga, you know, so returning to the oasis, returning to the source, returning to the womb, you know, before we go to the tomb. So,
thank you very much for that very thought-provoking response that makes us go back in circles again to just unpack what you've just said, but well appreciated. Emil Kabongo has asked the major question about the best thing about reading this book from somebody who has or somebody who can respond to this. It can come from the audience that have, it can come from the panelists. It will be the last question we take for the day. I think you know, as I personally read the book, I get into the depth of Eugene's you know, life experiences and the beauty of how he sees it when I look at the language he uses it, you know, to explain his journey of life. And I'm still a student of what the book means. I'm still going through it in bite-sized chunks, but for anybody else who'd like to read it as a poet or maybe to comment about it, I'll leave it to the panel. Eugene. Would you like to respond to that, Lefifi?
Is that the best thing about reading this book is, imagine if it was written in Zulu.
And
you know, because this is just a translation of Eugene's depth of thought. Like I was explaining, Kuti, what makes poetry poetry, it is the depth of thought. You get it? It's not the rhymes and all this nonsense, but how much a person can fathom. You understand?
Thank you.
So the important thing about reading this book, it exposes you to how deep we can become, you know, from, because, you know, we have a lot of these poets, you know, but this is really poetry.
Hey, thank you, Lefifi. May I butt in? May I just say something small, Sister Brenda? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, my brother, my eloquent and erudite brother, phenomenal brother, Lefifi. Spot on. You have actually said, you know, what is wanting to come out of me, but I'll just twist a little bit like that gymnast and say it from a different angle. I was doing a poetry masterclass at the University of Johannesburg, maybe 3 years ago. I was invited to do a masterclass. And I told my students, we sat in a circle, I told them that the greatest poet, using the word in its singular form, is nature, is just being, is existence. As a child, and even now in my advanced age, every single day of my life, without fail, when I go on my meditative power walks, or when I'm just sitting, you know, standing, washing dishes, or just meditating or looking at the tree outside, nature is the greatest repository of poetry. And there is poetry in nature that is about anything, that is about violence, that is about love, that is about rape, that is about anguish, that is about loss, that is about grief. Everything that human beings believe they have invented or created exists already in the metaphorical form inside nature. So I spend a lot of time just meditating, receiving, observing nature, and nature gives me the answers. So all the eloquence that comes through me every day without fail is not contrived. It's not a pickaxe, you know, striking alabaster or some strong rock or whatever. You know, it's not a bomb exploding, you know, a dynamite exploding a mountain to get the trace of the wisdom. It's just standing and breathing deeply and watching and being a servant to the poetry that flows like the river that I'm in search of. It just washes you. Nature just tells you that this is the answer. So poetry is in nature. So the more we listen, I can tell Lefifi wants to come in, just to finish, the more we listen, the more we tune in, the more eloquent we can become in expressing the mystery of life. And that is deep poetry. Yeah.
My brother, let me put a little bit of the bones in this anatomy you just gave.
Yeah.
Actually, if you want to be very honest, the arts don't have a future if they achieve their purpose, because the purpose of art is to elevate the perception of humanity. And once humanity can be in a position to go and listen to the ocean, you don't need no Steve Reich, you don't need no Bella Bartok, you don't even need a Philip Davat, because the people can hear. So you don't even need these poems, because if you can understand on that high level of perception, the poetry in nature, you don't need William Blake or any of these crazy people, you know, because you can perceive, because, and that's how actually the artist, we are servants of the mystic to help the people elevate to a point where they can relate to nature, you know? And this is very, but unfortunately, our schools don't teach the students, you know, like I said, that we are dolos or conscious. All artists, you know, that the witch doctor uses to see, but the nation must use us to read into the future, because that is our purpose. You can even see in the liberation struggle, they needed the artists to interpret, you know. Simple as that.
Thank you very much. You know, and I just want to appreciate just a comment from Khaya Skeef, who says the best thing about reading the book is how vivid it is, how easily Uncle Ron makes it for us to be there in spirit, imagining his interpretations of his life, seeing it play out. He writes so beautifully, it's so calming, and becomes a blessing to know someone like him. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, this book is officially launched. In Search of My River is available on Amazon, downloaded or as an ebook or paperback. Thank you very much, Ssali and the team who were behind all of this, and the speakers that brought everything, as well as the performers. Thank you for joining us. Once again, good night until we do this again very soon on another book that is forthcoming, with Ssali Publishers being at the helm of it, and also just continuing to tell the beautiful story that is Africa. I thank you all for joining. Good night.